With the upcoming release of Wonder Man coming to Disney Plus, Marvel is proving that they're not afraid to give obscure characters their own spotlight. If you were to tell me 15 years ago that Wonder Man was going to get his own solo live-action series, I would have called you a liar. Yet in the big 2026, it's becoming a reality. And actually, the show looks pretty interesting. Based on the trailers that I've seen, it doesn't look like a typical superhero origin story. Now, Wonder Man is in no way, shape, or form one of my favorite comic characters, but there is a fantastic episode from one of the best things that Marvel has ever done, Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. In episode 10 of the series, titled Everything is Wonderful, it shows the origin of Wonder Man based on his first appearance in the comics from Avengers number 9 back in 1964. The cold open shows the POV of a man undergoing an experiment as he witnesses a battle between some of the Avengers and MODOK. A rush of energy surges as the man screams in pain. Then, opening credits. Side note, this theme song to the show is just absolutely peak. If you know, you know. It gets me hyped every time I watch it. After that banging opening, we get a little flashback to 3 hours earlier in Stark Tower, as Simon Williams is basically begging Tony Stark to not buy his company. Ever since Stark Industries stopped making weapons and has gone into energy, they're kind of destroying Williams' innovations. Not to mention that Tony Stark has been buying up shares of the company for some time now.
We're going under, Tony. But you know that. After all, you've been buying up shares of my company.
As Simon is pleading with Tony to not buy his company, Tony Stark is pretty much just ignoring him until he says this.
I built Williams Innovations from nothing. It's all I have.
Was, actually.
What?
I'm the majority shareholders of about 15 minutes ago.
He isn't even giving him the respect of his full attention, as he has like 5 different holographic screens up and he's messing with this sphere thing. Simon rightfully is pissed off and storms out of his office, and this is when Tony thinks it's a good time to start talking to him. Ant-Man is there and overheard everything and pretty much just grills Tony of how bad of a person he is, and rightfully so.
You're a real piece of work, Tony. Do the words business ethics mean anything to you? You just crushed that guy, Tony. What kind of man so callously disregards another human being like that?
I've got a plan that you wouldn't understand, Hank.
Meanwhile, Thor and Wasp are flying through the air chasing this AIM ship, and they're trying to take them down. And then they pull out this gun that just shoots a black hole at the Avengers. If it wasn't for the amazing power of Thor, they'd probably be in another dimension by now. Then Wasp comes up with a plan. Instead of chasing them, let's just clip their wings and follow them back to their home base, while they think that they shook off the Avengers. Also, kind of the B plot of this specific episode is Captain America getting adjusted to this world. In the previous episode of this series, he just was thawed out of the ice and woke up in the modern age. He meets Nick Fury for the first time and gives him his prized motorcycle from back in World War II. Meanwhile, Simon Williams has called in a favor to his brother Eric Williams, who is the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper is a recurring villain in this show. He's kind of the main guy to get his hands dirty for Hydra. He actually is the brother of Simon Williams in the comics, but he looks like this. I love the redesign that this show gave him. He feels like this hooded specter that's just kind of looming in the background. He feels a lot more scary and deadly than this. But Simon Williams is desperate. He's ranting about his hatred for Stark, and the Grim Reaper promises him that he knows some people who can give him the power that he is looking for. And who better to help him out than MODOK and AIM. MODOK tells him that his powers are going to be fueled by ionic energy, which is accurate to the comics, but he won't really be human anymore.
Are you saying that I won't be human anymore?
Human? Why would you want to be human?
As desperate as Simon is, he still agrees to it. As they're prepping Simon for the test, there's a quick little Easter egg of Wonder Man's original costume, which I feel is a nice little nod. And Grim Reaper pretty much bounces and is all like, hey, I'm out of here, but let me know if he actually survives. Fast forward back to Stark Tower, Tony Stark and Hank Pym are getting into another argument again. Ant-Man is again very correct and calling Tony out, saying that even though he stopped selling weapons, he's still selfish and is continuing to hurt people.
You say you've changed. Maybe you're not making weapons anymore, but you're still hurting people. Just ask Simon Williams.
And I'd have to agree. This episode really doesn't paint Tony in a favorable light, and I feel like Hank is 100% right in this episode. Cut back to that AIM ship that shot a black hole at Thor and Wasp. They are landing back in their home base, which just so happens to be the same base that they're conducting this experiment. Wasp's plan works like a charm, and her and Thor totally wipe the floor with these AIM guys. This moment starts to sync up with the cold open at the beginning of the episode, and we just get to see a different POV of this moment. And a funny little moment from this part of the episode that I really enjoy is once Thor and Wasp see MODOK for the first time, they are just absolutely roasting him.
Okay, stop. What is that?
'Tis some kind of... That is a very big head, like a frost giant's head on an infant's body.
And as Wasp is fighting MODOK, his laser beam from his head hits the ionic emitter, which causes it to malfunction, which is where we get to see that huge surge from the beginning of the episode as well. Another fun little moment that I like in this episode is that after this huge surge of ionic energy happens, everyone just kind of stops fighting to see what happened, which I think is just like a nice little touch on this episode. After the smoke clears, we see that Simon Williams has now become this being of pure ionic energy.
He survived.
This is just another slight variation from the comics. In the comics, Wonder Man can always keep his human form, although he has evolved into turning into a pure ionic energy form, but he can also revert back to his human form. He can kind of go back and forth. In this episode and in this show, he is only purely this ionic form. His human form is no longer. Simon Williams doesn't even say a word after this operation. He is on that black Air Force One timing and goes straight for Stark. Cut back to Stark Tower. Iron Man is now suited up in his armor. It seems like the argument that him and Hank are having might escalate to a physical altercation, but just before that can happen, they feel a big boom in the building. They go to investigate, and it's none other than Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, just aura farming in his office. Simon Williams doesn't waste any time and totally pieces Iron Man up by dismantling his armor. He is absolutely dog walking him, even in front of his girl Pepper.
Pepper, go! Get out of here!
And just before Simon delivers what would be a fatal blow, Ant-Man steps in on Simon's side, but just tries to de-escalate the situation. It's kind of a running character trait throughout this series that Ant-Man, Hank Pym, is super against violence. He tries his best to resolve any altercation by talking it out. Ant-Man tells Tony to get to safety while he handles Simon for the moment. Cut back to Thor and Wasp at the AIM facility. They're still just roasting MODOK, absolutely humiliating him, which I think is pretty funny.
So, tell me the truth. Your boss, he freaks you out, right? Yeah! Look at him! Why would somebody do that?
Never in all of the 9 realms have I seen a creature as foul as you. Truly, mortal technology is worse than the darkest black magic.
But before they can take him out completely, MODOK activates a failsafe within the facility that turns the facility into a giant ship. Wasp is vulnerable to the blast, and Thor protects her, saving her life, because a big blast from a rocket is literally nothing to Thor. I really like how powerful they make Thor in this show. I feel like the MCU nerfed him just a little bit. There's so many times in this series where Thor is just literally immune to attacks because he is Asgardian. It's great. I love it. Anyway, Wasp is fine due to the protection of Thor, and then their Avengers ID cards start to go off. Ant-Man and Wonder Man are duking it out in the city, and Hank is still trying to talk Simon down in between nerding out over his new ionic form.
We're able to expand the ionic energy. That's amazing!
And it actually works. Hank is able to appeal to the humanity that's still within Simon. Simon confesses he never wanted to hurt anyone, he just wanted revenge on Tony. But all that goes out the window as Iron Man shows up at literally the worst possible time and starts to attack him again. Hank is still trying his best to defuse the fight between them, but before he can, Simon's ionic form is starting to destabilize. Tony is desperate to save him as he feels guilty for Simon resorting to this experiment just to get revenge on Tony, and they get the idea to contain his particles within the arc reactor. As Tony is trying to get him to the arc reactor, Simon is still putting up a fight and kind of panicking on what's happening to him. And unfortunately, the Avengers can't get him to the arc reactor before Simon just dissipates. Tony hangs his head and finally explains that the reason that he bought Simon's company was to help it from going under. He says that Simon had great ideas that he wants the world to see, and this is supposed to be kind of a redemption moment for Tony. But he never explains that to Simon. There were so many times in this episode where he could have just said that, but he didn't. Plus, with Tony being a billionaire, I'm sure he found a way to still make a profit from buying Simon's company. I still think Hank Pym was totally right throughout the entirety of this episode. The episode ends with the Enchantress bringing Simon back to life later in the night, and she tells him that in exchange for giving his life back to him, he needs to join the Masters of Evil to help take down the Avengers. And that is the end of the episode. Like I said, there are a lot of similarities from this show and Wonder Man's origin from the comics, but I feel like this adaptation just fits the world of this series a lot better. And yeah, this episode is great, just like pretty much every other episode in this series. But what do you think? Are you a fan of this show? Would you like me to review other episodes of this show? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a like. It really helps me and the channel out a lot. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.